Deputy Zoning Administrator, and Sky Robinson Barnes, Land Use Board Coordinator. The board is charged with hearing applications for special exceptions, variances, and administrative appeals. All testimony is recorded for the record, and anyone wishing to speak will need to be sworn in and come to the podium to speak. No testimony can be taken from the floor. When you come to the podium, state your name and please speak clearly into the microphone because this meeting is being recorded. Applicants with cases before the board are allotted a presentation time of 10 minutes. This time also includes all persons presenting information on behalf of the applicant. This time limit does not include any questions asked by the board or staff regarding the case. Any member of the public may address the board in intervals of 3 minutes or 5 minutes if by a spokesperson for an established body or group of 3 or more. The applicant then has 5 minutes for rebuttal. The board reserves the right to amend these limits on a case-by-case basis. Those of you who plan to speak must be sworn. If you are here as an applicant or here to speak in any case, please stand at this time and raise your right hand. Do you affirm or attest that the testimony you will give today is the truth and nothing but the truth? Very good. At this time, I will turn the meeting over to Ms. Hasty.
Thank you and good afternoon. All right, if I can get this to move forward. We're going to start with the consent agenda. Well, it does not appear to be working, but we are starting with the consent agenda, and the only item on the consent agenda today is the approval of the March 2nd minutes.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good.
All right,
It's your line.
moving on to the regular agenda. Try again here.
All right. So if we could hear from the applicant, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Toby Ward. I'm an attorney here in Columbia, and I have the pleasure of representing Zaid Kalani, who's seated at the bench next to me. As you can tell, Zaid is a physician. In fact, he's a general surgeon practicing here in Columbia, and the reason he's in his medical garb today is that he has the great fortune of leaving tomorrow on a trip out of town, and so he was seeing a lot of patients before he left. The matter that is before you today is a piece of property that's on Hardin Street. I trust everyone's had a chance to review the hearing packet, and you're probably, if you ever go to Five Points or to Rosewood via Hardin Street, you're probably familiar with this general stretch of area, which consists of some lots established back during the establishment of the whole area in 1928. I forget the developer's name, but this is one of those smaller lots, originated in 1928. And it was not only a small lot, but it was a duplex. And not only is it a small lot with a duplex, but when the building was created, there was insufficient space to drive around back to park. Each of the duplex units has 3 bedrooms. All of those conditions were present when the current owner, Mr. Kalani, bought the property, and as best I can tell, those same conditions have been present since 1928. That is, it's a small lot, it's narrow, the construction of the duplex made it impossible to get cars around back, and all the parking was in front. We think that that establishes grounds for the granting of a variance to continue the parking that has been in place for many years, that is, in the front yard, in violation of the city ordinance, which says you can't park your vehicles in the front yard. There's nowhere else to park the vehicles other than the front yard. If you're familiar with this area, there's no on-street parking, and in fact, there's about a 8 to 10 foot change of elevation from the roadbed up to the area where the houses, or the duplexes, are built. And so it also makes it difficult generally just to get in and out of the property, because you have to take that sharp turn off Hardin if you're turning right and climb up the hill and park. The parking when Mr. Kalani bought the property was gravel. He did make one change. That is, he shored up the right-hand side of the property as you look at the building to put up a bit of a barrier because there's a significant drop-off from the right-hand side of the lot where vehicles are parked to the next lot, and he didn't want anyone to drive over that drop-off and cause a problem there. Of course, it's not technically allowed for you to consider, but several of the properties in this area utilize front parking for the same or similar reasons. So we believe that that under the conditions of the city's ordinance and state law, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions that apply to this piece of property. That is the way it was built and the size of the lot and the lack of parking in the back. That these conditions don't generally apply to other properties because this is one of the few that basically cut off the parking in the back by the construction of the building. The other ones you can get around back and park, but people park in the front. This condition didn't result from Mr. Kalani's actions because he didn't build the house back in the 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s or whenever it was built. These conditions don't create any problem outside of this particular piece of property, other than when you drive by, you see as many as 6 vehicles parked there because the duplex, each of them has 3 units, so 2 times 3 is 6. And the world being what it is today, everybody wants a car, especially if they're a student, and that's who occupies these units at this time. So I hope I haven't drug this out too long, and if anyone has any questions, I would try to answer them. And also, Mr. Kalani can answer any questions that you might have.
I have a question actually for Ms. Hasty. Is it not correct, are you not allowed to park on the front yard on a prepared surface?
On gravel.
A properly prepared surface
Or-
within a
yes.
certain, I mean, my understanding of the front yard parking ordinance is that you're allowed to have a certain percentage or certain
Yeah.
number of square footage.
40% or 500 square feet, whichever's greater.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So-
we're at 70%.
They're requesting a variance from 40 to 70%.
Okay, all right. All right, you confused me because you said something like they would not be allowed to do it. Okay, good, all right. So what questions do we have? Board members?
I don't have any questions.
Nope,
Thank you very much.
all right.
Thanks.
Okay. Do we have anyone who would like to speak on the case? Mr. Daniel?
Madam Chairman, members of BOZA, I'm the president of the Wheeler Hill Neighborhood Association. Our neighborhood, along with Wales Garden and the other neighborhoods that surround 5 Points, supported Dick Carputin in his efforts a couple of years ago to clean up the bar scene in 5 Points, to get the Department of Revenue to actually follow the law that we all approved as a constitutional amendment, and we were successful. We have undertaken now to try to clean up other things in our neighborhoods, one of which is the proliferation of parking in front yards that exceeds the percentage allowed. If you will look from Haywood Street to Hardin along Hardin, from Haywood to Rosewood along Hardin, if you would look at Walker Mall from Haywood Street to Rosewood, it's over and over the same issue. He wants a 70% he wants to pave 70% of that lot. Limited green space will remain. There are 2 others almost within a stone's throw of this same property. You've got 503 Hardin Street, which is a corner lot, which has the same 6 parking there. You've got 1930 Wheat Street, which has the same issue. If you allow this, you are setting the roadmap for the future in not only Wells Garden, but the other neighborhoods downtown. basically letting the front yards become parking lots instead of a designated parking space for a certain amount of space with the proper gravel or other type of coating. The neighborhood, our neighborhood is not supportive, and I think I can argue that the other neighborhoods downtown are not supportive of this expansion. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak on this case? All right. Would the applicant like to respond, rebut?
Only to say that the condition that we now have is not the result of anything Mr. Kalani did. It's been in existence for many years. He simply came forward to seek permission to do what has been going on for many years. And again, as I said before, it's not something that he created. This condition was created when someone built a duplex with 2 dwelling units and 6 bedrooms on a piece of property that sits close to the road and you can't get to the backyard. Thank you.
Now, we got a letter, and I don't have the pictures from the letter. Do you have the ability to put them up at all? You don't? Okay. Because we got pictures, we got a letter from a protestant, and it included pictures that show that there was not parking. They just stacked the cars on the driveway. There was no other parking issue. I can't, he gives you several different times when this has happened, but that it was mostly green space. So I'm not sure what they did before, but I mean, certainly one can take the bus or ride a bicycle, but I'm not sure what they did. I wish we could get this to you. If you want to look at my phone, I suppose that would be.
I would say that if that person is not here to present their evidence, that it shouldn't be considered.
It's part of the record.
It's part of the packet. It's Rich Horton sent us an email, and we get emails all the time. That's part of what we get, I guess, as part of the packet. They're showing images from 2018, 2016, 2015, 2014, and 2011 show a yard in varying states of care that even at its worst, it was superior to this parking lot. He said that this current situation, he says, I encourage you to deny the variance request for 505 and 508 Hardin Street. I would suggest that the current situation, 508, that doesn't make sense. The current situation is exactly what these rules were meant to prevent. You can see on Google Street View that the house had a yard as recently as 2018, and he goes on from there. Front yard fits with surrounding properties and the character of both Wales Garden and Shandon neighborhoods. While I'm sympathetic to the parking constraints, this is an issue that has been present for decades. Tenants of this duplex were able to cope with limited parking for 90 years before this front yard was transformed into a parking lot. So,
Well, Mr. Kalani was sworn in. I was sworn in. Mr. Daniel was sworn in, but the person whose information you just read, they were not sworn in. So I would submit again that it's not competent for you to
Okay.
consider it.
so there were, you dispute that there was,
As of 2019 in the survey, there were sidewalks, and
right.
so if
Yeah.
that's the question at hand as to when the surface was taken from grass and sidewalk.
Kalani has photographs of the property when he bought it.
Okay.
And it was a gravel parking lot.
When did you buy it? 2021. And the survey that we have here from
2019.
2019 shows, does not show, it just does not show parking lot. It
Right.
just shows a sidewalk.
And we submitted that survey. We're not trying to hide anything.
Oh, right. But I mean, the question is that since that's the case, people weren't parking. I guess it looked like what they were doing in his pictures, that they were stacking the cars down the driveway and,
That was a less than ideal situation, I suppose. But again, the problem is that you have 2 residential dwelling units. Each has 3 bedrooms, and you cannot get around back to park. And that condition has existed since a long time.
Right,
Mr. Kalani did not install the gravel parking lot.
right,
That was there when he bought it.
right.
He tried to improve it, and he thinks that the current configuration is safer because of the terrain, the incline going up.
Okay,
So if you, but you'll have to weigh the evidence and decide what you want to do. But again, I would submit that if you consider evidence from some that's not coming from a sworn-in source, then you're undercutting the process where you made all three of us swear in, and someone who isn't even here, much less sworn in, you're going to give credence to their testimony.
although I guess we could probably take judicial notice of the Google Earth. You would agree to that, perhaps?
Is it in the record?
Yeah, it is in the record.
Yes,
I think
the
it's
letter was,
attached to the packet.
yes, the letter was in there. Oh, I'm sorry, it came after the packet, but we forwarded it, yes, so it would be
Right.
part of the
We've all
record.
gotten a copy of it.
Yeah, we all received it.
Right.
Right.
I'm just saying we could arguably take judicial notice of the fact that Google Earth is a neutral source, and he
Arguably,
probably didn't doctor those photos, but,
Yes, you could, and, you could go around the block to find a way to stop it. I'm just asking you to rule based
Sure.
on the evidence that's in front of you, the competent evidence.
okay, all right,
Thank you.
all right.
I think my
Unfortunately.
position is basically, you approve this, you're opening the door for other people to convert a front yard from 40% to 70% parking lot. Where does it end? I mean, we might as well just pave the whole front yard and move on. I mean, the neighborhoods are trying to take our neighborhoods back. And this is, the bar scene was step one. This is step two, trying to deal with the university and their smoke and mirrors is step three. Trying to get a town and gown committee with the university again is smoke and mirrors. But, we're struggling and we need some help. Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right. Testimony is closed, and let's begin board discussion. Anybody want to start?
Can I ask a clarifying question of Hope?
Certainly.
For the application, just to make sure that we understand what exactly that we're discussing, is that, are we approving that it maintain as is, or is there additional work that's being requested?
Yeah, he can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that it's just to maintain as is, because it already exceeds the amount that's allowed by ordinance.
Anyone want to start?
I'll put something out there that I'm curious y'all's thoughts on for the discussion, and that's that, the extraordinary exceptional conditions pertaining to a particular piece of property, if you go by it, it is, it's one down from a corner lot. And then on the Wheat Street side, there's a house that does jut in, so there isn't, although it's set back from Hardin Street, similar to the other houses that are on Hardin Street, it's not further back, eliminating the parking in the back. There wouldn't be any room to put a parking spot back there, even if there was access to get to it. So it does seem like there's a little bit of extraordinary and exceptional conditions that prevent them from being able to park in the back, that are different than, other houses on the same, that are similarly built on the same stretch, that if they came forward and said, we want to do 70% of our front yard, we'd say, no, there's room in the back to create a parking spot potentially. So it doesn't necessarily open up the door to grant this to everyone on the street.
That's a good point.
I think experientially, it does a little bit open the door. If this is okay, then somebody else who maybe doesn't have as extenuating circumstances thinks it's okay. And we find ourselves people start asking for forgiveness rather than permission. And so while it's not his fault for purchasing a property that had already been compromised, that's kind of the difficult part.
I agree with the uniqueness of the property where you can't parking in the rear, this being a unique situation, and anybody else, it does kind of open the door, but we have to take it on a case by case and examine, if somebody else tries to do it, examine it then.
Sherrod?
I'm still a little confused, because kind of like the question you were asking, are we, because the paperwork said that they want to go from 40% to 70% with paved or with gravel?
It's my understanding they're leaving it as is, which is just gravel. And they were already in violation, which is how this kind of came to
So
be.
it's already in violation?
Yeah, yes,
So they're asking for 70% to avoid the violation, is that correct?
basically.
Remedy it, I guess.
And did staff help to establish that 70%? Because looking at it, it looks like it's, 95%.
Yes, one of our inspectors.
I mean, as far as board discussion goes, I mean, it's already a parking lot. So, I think if I'm thinking about, if I was a neighbor and thinking about the neighborhood, which is one of the things that we can assist with, is maintaining the standards of the area that variances want to be in. It's a property with no grass. I mean, it's a parking lot already. And so I think for me, if it was a situation where you had cars parking on grass, where it was an obvious violation of when you're looking at the standards that the neighborhood has already set for properties like this, then I think it would be a little bit stronger, but we're essentially, sounds like we're slicing the apple between whether or not we want a paved parking lot or a non-paved parking lot, because either way it's a parking lot. So that's where I'm confused.
Well, I think I'm puzzled. Just first place, the conditions on the property were known when the property was purchased.
Exactly.
So it was plain to see. It's not like it was suddenly discovered, oh gosh, we can't do this. I'm concerned that, and it does appear that we have some inkling that perhaps it was not always gravel, that perhaps his predecessor in interest put the gravel down. It's just, it gives a roadmap to the next person to say, okay, well, I'm going to put the gravel down and then sell the property, and then the next person can say, hey, but we've already got gravel here. It is an unusually small property, and it is not like the other properties on that stretch are larger. I think next door is a business, isn't it? No, it's not.
Two down.
Two down is a business.
Two down, it's pretty much all duplexes in that for probably about another block up.
Well, no, because there's at the corner of Wheat and, at the corner of Wheat and Hardin, on the southwest corner of Wheat and Hardin is a nice house.
You're not going south, you're
Yeah.
going up. If
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
going up past that duplex, it's all
Right, I'm sorry, no, but I'm saying on the southwest corner, if you're going south, going up the hill, keeping going on up the hill, that first house on the other side of Wheat Street is a really nice house with a
Like a 2-acre lot.
a fence and a beagle that keeps escaping.
Right, I understand, but next to this property,
Right.
all of those
Yes,
properties are
yes, you're right.
duplexes.
You're right.
That's my point.
Yeah, okay.
I have a point too. If you go up another block from here, street parking starts to come into play.
Yep.
So
One block
the
up.
further up you go, there's less people parking in the front yard. Here, there's really no other place to park unless
other
you're
options.
going up into the neighborhood and parking your car on the street and
Well, you could
in front
park,
of somebody's
you
house.
could go up and park on the street.
But then you're cutting into somebody else's. You're parking in front of their
It's public
house.
parking
and-
spaces.
It sounds to me like this was a problem that was created by the person that bought the property and turned it into a duplex in the first place.
Well, I think it was always a duplex. It was always a duplex.
That's what I'm saying, like, that's when the problem started, because you're in an area
Well, I
that
think
has no,
it may be in
it has
19
no street parking.
In
You
1928,
got two
everybody did have cars.
duplexes that has 3 bedrooms apiece.
Well, but
That's 6 people that were commissioned to stay there.
Well, but if you think about it, in 1928, or whenever this was built, 1933 or something, in 1933, it was probably a home, and there probably was one car per person, per spot.
Right, that's why I said
At
duplex,
most,
not home.
at most.
Whenever it was turned into a duplex.
No, it was always, it was built as a duplex.
2 homes next to each
It's
other,
always been built as a duplex.
but not students.
It's not, it was always been built as a duplex, but my guess is that in 1933, when it was built, it was a family, 2 family homes, side by side, attached. And that they were, and the presumption is that at most you had 1 car and perhaps none because they had streetcars and because also people walk and because you're convenient, you know, a lot of people get around and take the bus and so on and so on. I mean, there are other options, other transportation options, and there were considerably more. The assumption that you automatically have 3 cars for 3 bedrooms only works if you're talking about students or adults,
build.
not a family. A family wouldn't necessarily have 3 cars. You see? Does that make any
No,
sense?
I appreciate the
I mean,
history lesson, but it doesn't, I mean, we're talking about a
talking about
place
today.
right now that
Right.
occupies a space for students. There's 6 people that live in there, 6 students that are gonna have cars. There's no grass in the lot. It's already a gravel and concrete lot. I'm not sure exactly what is the variance for? For more gravel, for more?
No, it's just
The
to
variance
allow
to
it
not-
to
the
The
exist
variance
as
is to not
is.
be in violation. Right now, they're in violation because they exceed the permitted amount, which is 40%. They now are at 70% or more. And so now what they're requesting is that they be taken, they get permission to do what they've been doing all along.
For that extra 30%.
We're giving forgiveness.
Yeah, I think that's where my confusion is. It kind of seems like a no-brainer to me. Like it's a gravel parking lot. They're asking for it to be okay for them to do something they're already doing.
Because what they're doing is not, is in violation of the ordinance.
So where are the cars gonna park?
Well, to some extent, that's not our problem. Realistically, that's not our problem. They're asking for permission to have somewhere to do it. The cars, first place, one of the things we approved, the student housing project last month, I believe, that is not providing spaces, parking spaces. They're not providing 1 space per student, per resident. They're providing considerably fewer, with the assumption that the students will in fact take public, if you're a Carolina student, you get your Carolina card gives you a free Comet pass. You can take the Comet anywhere. So, I mean, and it is easily within walking distance of campus. So that it's not a foregone conclusion that they have to have cars. And in fact, we approved a project just last month where the assumption was that they were not going to have 1 car, 1 space per resident. So, not necessarily a done deal. I mean, I agree that this is an unusual, with John, is that it's an unusual situation in that it is a unique site compared to the other sites around nearby. So I'm not as concerned about a slippery slope issue. But they did come to the nuisance, they did come to the problem, which is, you know, you can look at it and see, wow, you've got nowhere to put cars. And then they just took it upon themselves to do it. That's a concern I have. But they are trying to ask for absolution, so I suppose we could, that's really what they're asking for right now, is absolution. So,
I just ask this, if you're not parking in front of this house, first place they're going to go is around the street, around the corner there and park in front of some of these nicer homes in the neighborhood that would potentially sit there. And I understand that it's public parking, anybody can park there, but it goes back to the point, is that what really the neighborhood wants?
Well-
You know, would you rather have them park in front of the property in which they live, or?
well, I think the neighborhood doesn't get a choice, doesn't get to say, but I also think that,
Can we ask the neighborhood?
I think
The neighborhood has spoken.
I mean, well, we've heard some from some of the neighborhoods and the neighborhood people, and they're not happy with it. I mean, the fact is that, I mean, I have a parking space in front of my house. I live in University Hill. I have a parking space in front of my house, and, you know,
It's not yours.
it's not mine, and I know it's not mine. I don't expect it to be mine. And when somebody comes to my house, they might have to walk down the hill, up or down, on a very steep hill, too.
Yeah.
They have to walk up or down the hill. So, that's just the way the world works.
Madam Chairman, the 2000 block of Wheat Street is parking by permit,
Okay?
so
Okay, so they aren't going to park on Wheat Street, but they could park up the hill on Hardin Street.
they could get a permit.
Sure, or they can get a permit, exactly. So they could get a permit, or they can, yeah, that's another thing too, is you can get permit parking. Because I know Wheeler Hill is parking permit parking
Well,
only,
there's,
yeah.
and there's 22 and a half feet between the front porch and the property line. So what they're saying is you could stack cars in line, but if the guy closest to the porch or girl closest to the porch wants to leave, you got to back two cars out onto Hardin, which is potentially dangerous. And
Well,
then,
but again, my house has a short driveway that you can park two you could park two smart cars in, but that's it. And so we actually only have one car. It's because we don't really need one, but we park one in our garage, and that's that. I mean, you live in the city, you can get around, you don't, have to drive everywhere. It's one of the nice things about living in the city is that you can walk places, and you've got public transit and so on and so on, or ride share. I mean, I think that's one of the things that we're understanding from the university, that the people are using ride share.
Can I ask another question?
Going way far afield.
Hope, if we were starting from scratch on this, and somebody, if they were coming sort of fresh and they had sort of what's shown in 2019, are there any other like landscaping factors or material factors or things like that that would play into
Like
sort of
materials.
mitigation of, because it's not a parking lot that we would have for a business?
Yeah, you mean to establish the parking area?
Right.
Yeah, not really for residential. I mean, it's just, we've got in our code, certain things you can use as a parking surface, and then you can't park on the grass and stuff like that. But
So I guess to recap, we've got a situation, an unusual, unique situation. There are alternatives that would involve street parking or stacking cars or stacking cars and/or getting parking permits. But they're not as ideal. We have a situation where currently what they're doing is not going to degrade the environment any further than what's actually there on the ground. So, I don't know. Do I have a motion from anybody? Bueller?
I'll make the motion that we approve, subject to staff comments.
Second.
Second, third.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Motion carries. Okay. All right, and we have, turning it back over to Ms. Hasty.
yeah, so we just have one more thing on the agenda today, just a reminder about continuing education. So as board members, you're required to have continuing education, and it now will be, since with COVID, a lot of it was remote, online and stuff, but it does have to be in person now. So just wanted to make you all aware of that it has to be basically proctored by a, I forget what it's called, live facilitator. So just to make you aware of that, so you'll need to come to,
In person or a webinar with a live?
in person, yeah,
Mandatory.
yes.
That was before my time.
Yeah, some of you may be exempt from it. I know, Ms. Fenner, you are. But, yeah, it's 6 hours for the first year and then 3 hours every year after that. So just a reminder, and Sky Robinson Barnes will usually send out the emails with reminders of that as well, and we'll have different sessions that you can attend. So I just wanted to let everybody know it will be in person from now on.
Will people be able to use their parking passes? I'm sorry, I'm
question.
exempt because I'm a lawyer, but I'm thinking like a lawyer here. Come on, guys.
Yeah, I don't know.
Probably
Sky,
not.
you know? We'll confirm.
You guys are.
Well, let's go virtual.
All right,
All right, thank you.
anything further?
That's all today.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, let's go.
Second.
Bye, y'all. Great.
Thank you.
Now
Thanks.
you can. You got really excited.
See, man.
Ooh, it's actual mayor thing.
Oh, that's special.
He's got his own. I think somebody probably gave it to him.